The grass was still damp from an earlier rain, glistening beneath the glow of the twin moons overhead. One of them didn't belong. Earth's natural satellite, Luna, shared the sky now with the shimmering pale orb the Celestari had brought into orbit for their own nocturnal balance. It hung higher than the moon, not as bright, but unmistakably foreign. Riven adjusted his scarf and sat cross-legged near the edge of the sloped meadow, overlooking a valley threaded with silver rivers and the quiet glint of distant towns. The fire between them crackled softly. No wood, only pale blue energy hovering in a controlled dome. It gave off no smoke, just warmth and gentle light, enough to see the woman across from him. Her name was Ilani, and she wasn't from here. Her silhouette shimmered faintly in the starlight, long limbs folded gracefully, her skin the color of deep oceans streaked with veins of shifting gold. Beneath her jaw, twin crests extended like feathered fins, twitching occasionally with emotion. Her eyes held galaxies. Literally, sparkling flecks of moving light danced within them, like nebulae viewed from close range. She studied Riven with a tilted head, expression unreadable. You asked for a lesson. We begin now. I thought we already began, he said with a grin, pulling a small notepad from his coat pocket. It was half filled with scribbles in both English and the sharp-edged Celestari script. You've listened, but you haven't heard. She stood and walked a few steps uphill, her motion so fluid it almost unnerved him. Her long cloak, woven from some gleaming fabric like molten silver, rippled behind her. Come, she said, gesturing. Riven followed. Crickets chirped somewhere far off, and a soft breeze carried the scent of cedar and rain-wet earth. He stopped beside her, his boots crunching on pebbled soil. Language, she said, pointing up, is more than sound. It's memory, sensation, pattern. She raised a hand toward the sky. Stars pulsed gently above them. Riven watched, breath held, as the constellation above her fingers seemed to shift, just slightly. Was it an illusion? Ilani spoke a word. Karul. The stars shimmered in unison for a heartbeat. What does it mean? He whispered. She looked at him. It's our word for the feeling when stars seem close enough to touch. That's a whole word? We do not break beauty into sentences. He chuckled. Humans love to explain everything. Humans love to contain everything, she corrected, her tone not unkind. Even things meant to remain open. He looked up again, then murmured, Karul. She turned sharply toward him. He blinked. Did I get it wrong? No, she said slowly. You pronounced it as if you felt it. He shrugged. Maybe I do. They stood together in silence for a moment. The wind moved Ilani's cloak. The stars continued their silent glow. From the valley below, a wolf howled once, long and mournful. Finally, Ilani turned and sat on a large, flat stone embedded in the hillside. She patted the space beside her. Now, sit and listen deeper. Riven obeyed, settling in beside her. The stone held a whisper of warmth from the day's sun, just enough to ease into. Ilani held out one hand, palm up. Feel this word, she said, and a symbol flared above her skin. Spinning, delicate, shaped like a spiral woven with blades. Shariman. Riven tried to mimic the sound. Shariman. She gave a small shake of her head. Try again. Do not force your breath. Let the feeling guide it. He closed his eyes. Let the word rise from somewhere beneath his ribs. Shariman. When he opened his eyes, the symbol above her palm flickered, brightened, then dimmed. Ilani inhaled sharply. You've activated it. He frowned. Activated. These symbols, they are memory shards. Our ancestors infused them with echoes of meaning. When pronounced with truth, they respond. Truth, huh? She nodded. You cannot fake Celestari. He considered that. What does Shariman mean? Bonding. Between souls. Riven's breath caught. Ilani's gaze didn't waver. She wasn't smiling. But she also wasn't moving away. I didn't mean to say anything too intimate, he said, clearing his throat. You said what you felt. That is not wrong. She looked down at her hand. The symbol had faded completely, but perhaps it was premature. They both stared at the quiet fire below them. I've never had a conversation like this, he said finally, where words feel like touching someone. Ilani's voice softened. Because your people fear that kind of closeness. We don't fear it, he said. We complicate it. She made a low hum, something between agreement and pity. Then she said, teach me one of your words, one you never say aloud. Riven thought for a long moment. Then he whispered, ache. Ilani looked puzzled. Pain? Not exactly. It's more wanting something you can't have. Missing something that might not exist anymore. It's not sharp. Just always there. She repeated it slowly. Ache. Riven nodded. Ilani didn't speak for a long while. Then she asked, do you ache, Riven? His name sounded like music in her voice. He swallowed. Sometimes. And now. He looked at her. The night wrapped around them like velvet. Her presence, otherworldly yet real, close enough to touch, sent a shiver through him. No, he admitted. Not right now. She smiled, not brightly, but with something deeper, like she, too, had just discovered a word without translation. The stars above them shimmered again, but this time they didn't need to say anything more. They just listened, together. The night deepened as if the world around them held its breath. Crickets fell quiet. Even the wind, which had once danced playfully through the trees, seemed to pause in reverence for something unfolding. Riven remained seated beside Ilani, his hands resting on his knees, his fingers tracing thoughtless circles into the fabric of his pants. Every now and then he stole a glance at her, noticing things he hadn't before. The way her eyes seemed to drink in the night sky, how her breathing slowed in rhythm with the sounds of the earth, how she was entirely still like part of the landscape. She spoke softly, as if to not disturb the hush. When you first approached me, I believed you sought novelty, a curiosity. He didn't respond right away. The firelight flickered against his jawline, casting angular shadows. Maybe I did, at first. Her gaze found him. And now, I think, he hesitated. I came seeking language, but I found something else. Ilani tilted her head, the crests along her neck shifting subtly. Do you know what you found? Riven smiled. Not yet, but it makes me want to stay. A flicker of something moved across her expression. Not quite a smile, more like wonder. She rose, her limbs unfolding with serpentine grace, and stepped barefoot into the meadow. Dew clung to the tall grass, and every movement left a shimmering trail behind her. Come, she said again. Riven followed, leaving his notebook and scarf behind. The temperature had dropped, but not unkindly. It wrapped around him like a cool hand, reminding him he was alive. They walked in silence, side by side, until the fire was only a distant blur behind them. The meadow opened into a glade bordered by towering trees with bark that shimmered faintly. Ilani raised her hand, and a soft pulse of bioluminescent light spilled from her fingertips, hovering like lazy fireflies. They hovered in the air, forming a halo around them. This is where I came to grieve, she said. Riven blinked. Grieve. When our ship arrived, not all of us remained. My sister Luria died during descent. Her pod malfunctioned. She was younger, brighter, a soul meant for light. I'm sorry, Riven said gently. Ilani turned to him. I do not tell you this for pity, but to explain why I chose to teach. I was unraveling, drowning in language I could no longer speak without hearing her voice in it, until you asked to learn. He felt something in his chest tighten. I didn't know I'd interrupted something sacred. You didn't interrupt, she said, stepping closer. You rewrote it. The firefly lights floated higher, glowing brighter. She stopped inches from him. There's a word in Celestari Verethalin. He echoed it softly. Asterisk Verethalin. Asterisk, what does it mean? It means the act of falling, not into danger, but into closeness. A surrender without shields. His breath caught. Do you use that word often? Only once. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing brighter than the stars. When it's true. Riven opened his mouth, but no words came. Instead, he reached out, fingers brushing her hand. Her skin was cooler than his, smooth, tingling with energy. She didn't pull away. Their palms met, and for a moment, it felt as if the earth shifted beneath their feet. Ilani raised their joined hands. Now you speak without speech. Our language is not always vocal. Riven leaned slightly closer. Then what am I saying? Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. Instead, she touched her forehead to his, and something moved between them, like static or memory. Riven saw flashes, glowing crystals beneath alien waters, the warmth of a sister's laugh, the silence of grief, the curiosity of a strange biped asking to learn. The first time she'd noticed his eyes weren't like others. When the connection faded, they drew apart slowly. I saw, he began. You saw me, she said, voice thick. And I saw you. The lights began to dim on their own, satisfied somehow. Ilani sat in the grass, not minding the dew, and gestured for Riven to do the same. He settled in beside her, this time not shy about the closeness. She taught him a new word then, *Chilindru star. A word that meant learning while loving. He asked her to say it again, to hear how it curved on her tongue. Then he tried, and she corrected him with a soft laugh. The stars wheeled above them. She told him that her people didn't marry. They didn't bind in laws or rituals. They bound by trust, by moments stacked like stones. Moments like this. You humans bind in contracts, she said. Do you find that more secure? Riven chuckled. We try, but half the time we still fall apart. And yet, you keep trying. He looked at her, wondering what it meant that they were two species on opposite ends of understanding, yet drawn together by something older than culture. Can I ask you something? He said. Always. Do you think we're compatible? She raised a brow. Genetically, he laughed. No, not like that. I mean, us, you and me. Ilani turned her face upward again. That depends. On what? Whether you continue to ask questions like that. She turned to face him, serious now. And whether I continue to want to answer them. He grinned. Then I hope I never stop being curious. Then I suppose, she said, you already have your answer. For the rest of the night, they spoke in both languages, hers, his, and something else entirely. Their own. Built from pauses, glances, heartbeats, and stars. And the fireflies around them never left. The morning sun broke through the treetops, painting the forest floor in golden slashes of light. Birds chirped unfamiliar tunes, some native, some adapted from the alien flora that had taken root since the Celestari landings. The world was slowly learning how to merge two ecosystems, just as Riven and Ilani were learning how to merge two hearts. They returned to the glade every evening now, speaking less from books and more from instinct. Ilani's lessons had shifted, from strict pronunciation drills to the rhythm and music of her language. Celestari wasn't just spoken. It was sung, sometimes danced with subtle movements of the hands and eyes. Meaning layered itself in tones, gestures, even breath. Repeat after me, she said one night, her voice low and velvety. *Steri tal venos. *. Riven mirrored her movement and the phrase. *Steri tal venos. *. What's that one? It means, she hesitated, almost bashful. It means, I listen not with my ears, but with my spirit. Riven looked down, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. You say that to everyone? No, she admitted. Just you. He looked up. Her gaze didn't waver. They sat close, knees touching, the firelight flickering between them. The language lessons had started with distance, her correcting his speech from a few feet away. Now there were no boundaries left, no formalities, no hesitation when her fingers brushed his hand mid-gesture. But something still held Riven back from going further. That night she asked him directly, What are you afraid of? He answered without thinking, Messing it up. Ilani tilted her head. Asterisk this asterisk? You haven't. No, I mean everything after. I'm human. We're messy. We feel things loud. Sometimes too fast. Sometimes too much. She considered his words, then gently placed her hand over his heart. Then let me learn that too. The gesture silenced his thoughts. Another night passed, and another, and they began exploring the forest together by dusk. Ilani showed him which plants could hum under moonlight, which rocks vibrated with ancient memory. Riven, in turn, taught her to skip stones, to roast spiced nuts over an open fire, to whistle a tune from a film soundtrack she couldn't pronounce but found oddly moving. And yet, there was always a subtle ache, an invisible line neither dared cross, until one night when it rained. The storm rolled in without warning. Thunder cracked across the sky like a living beast. Ilani and Riven took shelter beneath the thick canopy of a fellwood tree, the leaves wide enough to shield them from the worst of it. The air was cool, charged with ozone, and their breath misted between them. She was soaked at the edges, dark hair clinging to her temples. Riven shrugged off his jacket, offering it silently. She took it, confused but grateful. You humans have so many unnecessary kindnesses. They're only unnecessary if they're not wanted, he said. Ilani tilted her head. Then they are necessary. For a long moment, they simply listened to the rain drumming above them. Then she said, We do not kiss in my culture. Riven's brow rose. All right, but I've read about it. Seen it. I wondered if it's like the linking we do. He hesitated. Would you want to try it? Just to know. She stepped forward. Yes, but if I do, it's not just to know. His heart thudded in his chest. They met halfway, no fanfare, no dramatic music. Just breath. Warmth. Her lips were unfamiliar, soft but cool, tasting faintly of rain and the citrusy leaf she liked to chew between lessons. And for a few seconds the world stilled. Not even thunder dared interrupt them. When they broke apart, her eyes shimmered. Riven didn't say anything. He just looked at her. Every detail clearer than ever. The curve of her cheek. The faint silver etchings on her skin that pulsed when she felt strongly. And right now they glowed like moonlight. You humans feel loud, she whispered. I warned you. I like it, she replied, smiling faintly. I like you. He touched her cheek, a thumb tracing a line beneath her eye. And I like you. The next day, they didn't return to the glade as usual. Instead, Ilani led him further, deeper into the woods. They reached a rocky outcrop that overlooked both forest and settlement. The fusion of Celestari domes and human houses, solar panels and treetop sensors coexisting in cautious harmony. This is where I watch the world try to belong to itself, she said. It's working, Riven said quietly. It will, she nodded. Because the heart adjusts faster than language. He took her hand. Will you keep teaching me? Even when I've learned every word. You won't, she smirked. But yes. They sat until the sun dipped below the horizon. No more phrases. No more drills. Just silence filled with meaning. His fingers laced in hers tightening with quiet joy. Love, they discovered, was its own kind of language, one without rules, but full of meaning in every pause, glance, and breath. And neither of them wanted to stop speaking it. The wind carried a subtle chill as autumn settled into the forest, crisp leaves rustling around Riven's boots as he walked beside Ilani. The trees had begun turning amber, gold, and violet, colors altered slightly by Celestari influence, the hybrid flora now part of Earth's evolving ecology. It had been weeks since their first kiss beneath the storm, and the world around them, like their bond, had changed in quiet, irreversible ways. Ilani's hair had grown longer, often tied loosely with threads of woven metallic grass from her homeworld. She wore earth-made boots now, stubbornly rejecting shoes she called useless clompsacks. Her accent had softened. Riven could now speak in full Celestari sentences, and when he stumbled, she no longer corrected him. She just smiled, understanding him anyway. That evening, they walked to the same outcrop where they had first watched the fusion of their two civilizations. The Celestari dome structures now had human solar wiring along their curves, and the human houses had begun incorporating bioluminescent panels gifted by Celestari engineers. Children, both species, ran through the streets together, laughing in a strange, wonderful mix of languages. "You see that?" Riven asked, pointing to a group of kids chasing after a floating kite creature, its wings flickering with soft green light. Ilani nodded. "That was never meant to happen. Our elders predicted only cautious coexistence. Temporary at best. Guess we're good at ruining predictions." She turned to him, her expression serene. "You ruined a great many things, Riven." He gave a crooked smile. "Like what?" "My loneliness," she replied simply. "My certainty. My boundaries." He didn't answer with words. He just stepped closer and took her hands. His fingers gently ran across the glowing lines on her skin. They pulsed under his touch like a response only he could trigger. "I never thought I'd find love teaching someone to pronounce Skalvetra," she whispered, recalling the difficult, breathy word he used to butcher horribly. He laughed. "That word almost killed me. Almost made me kiss you the first time, too," she teased. "You were so hopeless. So sincere." They sat down and for a while simply watched the lights come on across the settlement. Humans flipping switches, Celestari activating ambient energy fields. One flickered, then steadied. Life settling into shared rhythm. "Do you remember your first word in my tongue?" she asked softly. Olin. He smiled at the memory. She arched an eyebrow. "You remember what it meant?" "Of course. Open. You made me say it a dozen times." "I made you feel it," she corrected. Riven leaned his shoulder against hers. "You know what word I really want to learn now?" "Which?" He turned his face to hers, voice low. "Forever." Ilani's breath hitched, not out of fear or uncertainty, but from the depth of what that meant in Celestari. Time wasn't linear in her culture. Life bonds were rare, sacred, and often nonverbal, decided not by ceremony, but by spiritual resonance. But tonight her words were clear. Selva Nari. Riven blinked. "That means..." "Yes." She rested her forehead against his. "It means the bond has already formed. Cannot be undone." He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into his chest. "Teach me to say it right." She laughed quietly, then repeated it again, syllable by syllable. This time he got it perfect. They stayed there, watching as stars crept into the twilight. Above them, a Celestari transport ship passed silently, trailing light across the sky, a reminder of everything that brought them together. Cosmic accidents, ancient misunderstandings, and the strange miracle of two lives colliding. When they returned to the village later that night, hand in hand, no one stared. No one whispered. Everyone simply nodded, smiling with recognition. Because by now, they all understood. This wasn't just about learning to speak another language. It was about learning how to love across galaxies, how to listen beyond sound, and how to let your heart become fluent in someone else's soul. And for Ilani and Riven, no other words were needed. Their story was already written in every look, every laugh, and every quiet breath between them.